two, one. Boom! We are live for this new episode of the Electrek Podcast. I'm Fred Lambert, your host, and I'm joined by Seth Wintraub. Why are we live so early today, Seth?
Son's birthday party, but I'm good. Scheduling conflicts. Got my mom in town. Bunch of stuff happening.
Well, that's like grandma is there for the grandson's birthday. That's nice. But this is a good reminder to subscribe to our channel on YouTube, on Facebook, or wherever you're watching right now, because then you can get notified when we do go live a little early like that, so that you don't miss the show live if you're so inclined to watch it live. So good reminder on that. And if you do like our content, I would appreciate if you give us a thumbs up, a comment below, or something like that. Any type of engagement, it helps with the algorithm to push our show to more people, which is always appreciated. And same thing on your podcast app. If you're listening on your podcast, if you can give us a 5-star rating, that's also very appreciated. Of course, only if you like the show. No, nothing fake like that. That we're not encouraging you to share your opinion if you don't like it. But let's get into the news this week. We have a bunch of Tesla news as usual, a few other items that we're going to discuss later on the show. But the big news is the one that came out this morning, of course, the Tesla delivery and production result for Q2. And good results. Tesla announced a 201,000 vehicle delivered. The consensus was about 200,000, so they technically beat that, but it was kind of all over the place this quarter, the expectations, because what we discussed over the last few weeks, supply chains issue, the Tesla Vision thing that put 10,000, even more than 10,000, probably like several tens of thousand vehicles on hold for a little while. Then there was the Model S that got delayed. The deliveries were supposed to be early in the quarters. It ended up just being a few weeks of deliveries. And even in the very short press release that they released about the result, they do mention global supply chain and logistic challenges that complicated Tesla's result this quarter. But 206,421 vehicles produced. That's significant here. I mean, it looks like Tesla's production issues, like the supply chains, is even though it might still be challenging, the results are still there. It's still under control on that front. Deliveries 201,000. I mean, we're talking about I think 70% year over year up.
That's
120. No, the deliveries are 77% up quarter over quarter, year over year. Sorry, so that's a big deal. Quarter over quarter, it's closer to what 10% probably. Model S and X, which I think it's probably just Model S, right? Like we haven't seen any new Model X deliveries, but 2,340 production. So that's not too surprising because Tesla was still producing some units throughout the quarter, even though they weren't delivering until the last few weeks, and as they were still doing their quality testing. But then 1,890 delivered, which is significant. I mean, for like 3 weeks of delivery, basically, even less than that, I think. That's good. You can see here that a much higher percentage of them on lease than the Model 3, Model Y. The Tesla is still not breaking down Model 3, Model Y deliveries, which I still don't understand, because like those are big vehicle programs at this point. You kind of want to see the health of both of them, but Tesla is really weird about that. So 204,000 vehicle produced, 199,000 delivered. So still, of course, the majority of Tesla's deliveries are Model 3, Model Y. That's completely unsurprising. But yeah, I mean, great result, and it's Tesla basically like it's close right now to delivering with the first half of the year as many cars that they delivered last year. So that's for the entirety of the year. So that's great. Now a lot of people were hoping for 1 million cars in 2021 altogether. Now they would need a lot more deliveries in the second half of the year. We need a great ramp up for that, and there's still some room. Like right now, Tesla is obviously producing cars just over 200,000 units per quarter. So that's a good chance to deliver over 400,000 car next year, during the second half of the year. Sorry. But that wouldn't be enough, obviously, to achieve this number. Tesla needs just over 600,000 vehicle delivered in Q3 and Q4 together to get the million. So there is still room, I think, to improve a little bit, to accelerate a little bit production in Shanghai and Fremont. But it looks like Tesla would rely on at least like some decent volume from Berlin and or Texas. It can be either or depending on how the ramp up happens. So, but we do know like it's super hard to predict an early ramp up of a new vehicle program, and even more so a new vehicle program at a brand new factory, which is what is happening in both cases. Because the Model Y that they produce in Berlin and Texas is significantly different from what the Model Y Tesla produces in Shanghai and in Fremont. So it's not like just like copying the vehicle program with the whole structural battery packing, the whole new cells and everything. So this like, I was always a bit skeptical about the million vehicle goal. I'm a little more so right now, because even let's say if Berlin and Texas starts production towards the end of the quarter, which is not impossible, it would be extremely low production, like a few hundred units at most.
Right.
And then can they ramp up to a few thousand in Q4? That's the big question here. Not impossible, but right now I ranked it as unlikely. So closer to like 900,000 deliveries throughout the entire years. I think it's a better goal. What do you think, Seth?
Well, I mean, I'm looking at previous years. 2020, they had in the quarter one 88,000, then 90,000. Sorry, is that right? Yeah, 90,000 in the first two quarters. So that's only 180,000. Not even 170,000. No, 180,000. Sorry, in the first two quarters. Mm-hmm. So then they ramped up to 139,000, then 180,000 in Q3 and Q4. Those are pretty big jumps. If they can do just a little bit of a jump next quarter to, let's say 250,000, and then they can make up, if they can get up to 300,000, then they can kind of get to 1 million. So I'm, it's early. We don't know, but they can certainly get there. It would
not
require,
impossible.
Yeah, it would require getting one or both, as you said, a Berlin and Texas online, probably. And I don't think there's a demand problem at all. It's just really, can they make enough numbers? I wonder. I mean, if we look at the numbers this time, it's crazy how low a percentage Model S and X are. It's less than 1% of deliveries. So it's almost nothing. But we know that there's some significant Model S and X demand that theoretically Fremont can start putting out. So maybe that gets them, I'm not saying a big chunk of the way. They're definitely not getting numbers on Model S and X, but that kind of maybe can push them over the line a little bit.
You're not wrong, because I mean the program apparently should ramp back up to like in the thousands of units per week, like a 1 or 2 throughout the second half of the year. So that's going to be more significant than what we're seeing right now, especially with the Model X coming. I mean, the like right now it's mostly Plaid deliveries, and the long range Model S, and then the long range Model X with all the new features and the new interior and everything. I think those are going to be great sellers. Like they're gonna be popular vehicles in their respective segments.
Yeah, I mean, people have been waiting years for an upgrade, an update, a significant update. So this is what people kind of been waiting for a while.
Yeah, and as to your comparison to the ramp up in the second half of last year, we have to acknowledge though that's attributable to Model Y production starting in China, which was arguably one of the smoothest rollout of a new production I've ever seen, really, especially for electric vehicles, and that
also,
was in
also
China.
COVID. Yeah, COVID was a
COVID slowed down the first half too, so that's a good point too. So it was disproportionate to what we're seeing this year, but yeah, I don't think that Berlin and Texas are going to be as smooth as Shanghai. Not just because it's China and versus Germany and the US, but just because it's a completely, well, not completely different vehicle, but more different vehicle than Tesla is producing in Shanghai versus what the first Model Y produced in Fremont. So something to
Yeah.
keep in mind.
And if you're long Tesla, you really shouldn't be focused. I mean, it's a good thing to hit. Like if they can get 1 million cars, that would be a big deal. But if you're long Tesla, this, if they get to 900,000 or 1 million this year, it really doesn't make a whole lot of difference because Berlin and Texas are going to be running. I mean, the Cybertruck and other stuff is going to start coming out. Like in the grand scheme of things, it doesn't really matter if they get full speed in December or February or March of next year. It's going to happen, and the demand is there. So,
yeah, and that's a good point to transition to our next article because, yeah, like you said, this long term, this doesn't have a big impact. This is for like short term result, quarterly result that helps the stock price, which has some value for the greater mission of accelerating EV adoption, because showing a successful financially successful electric only vehicle company, it's great for electric vehicle investment. It's great example for other automakers to invest more in electric vehicles, and that was Tesla's mission for a long time. So it is part of the mission to do that quarterly, but we need to acknowledge that it comes at a cost, because especially this quarter with like the last 2 quarters, the intensity of the end of quarter delivery push was not as crazy as it was this quarter because of all the challenges that we just discussed on top of it. But it's not just that caused this crazy end of the quarter push. That's been part of Tesla's business for a long time. And this quarter we got a lot of reports from new buyers about having a VIN number in their account and the VIN number disappearing, and Tesla delaying the delivery of someone that wasn't, like, the delivery timing wasn't great for them. And that generally means that Tesla custom produced the car for an owner and then give it to somebody else that was able to take delivery faster, which helps with the end of quarter flow. So we've seen a bunch of that, which is not exactly new, but based on our anecdotal evidence, it looked like it happened a lot this quarter. And we also seen a lot of reports from people taking delivery of the vehicle during the end of quarter push. Even our own Michelle here at Electrek, who does the Egypt Electrek Green Energy brief every morning, she got her brand new Model 3. And it was a whole ordeal to schedule the delivery, and to have time to do a walk around the vehicle and everything. Not just like the orientation. Like Tesla has been moving away from the orientation for a while now, with pushing videos through the app in order to familiarize you with the car and everything beforehand. Though when it's not the end of the quarter, most Tesla advisors I've talked to have been perfectly willing, because I took delivery of quite a few Tesla vehicles myself, but also attended the delivery of many of my friends buying cars and other people. And normally they are more than willing to show you the car around. But when it's the end of quarter, and I've seen a few of those too, they try to get you out the door as fast as possible. From the orientation side of things, it's not that big of a deal, especially Tesla buyers are generally like pretty invested in their purchasing process, and they do their research beforehand. But for just a quality check around the car, that's very important, because you should never accept the delivery of a car if there's defect on it that they are not fixing right away. It's not completely abnormal to have a few defects on a new vehicle. It happen with any brand, but normally they're gonna fix it right now, or they're gonna fix it within a few days, and you're gonna delay the delivery. Tesla tries to avoid that at the end of the quarter, because they want the car delivered as soon as possible. And it's not unusual to hear a Tesla advisor telling you, look, take delivery of the car right now, and we're going to schedule an appointment within the next few weeks for you to bring it back, or we send a mobile service guy to your place, and we're going to fix those issues. And we've heard some problem with that, of course, in terms of delays and everything, especially since you can have if you have a lot of people doing that, then you have a backlog in service and everything. So it's a wheel that just keeps going. It's a vicious cycle. So yeah, we would like to see Tesla find a better balance in achieving great delivery numbers and not having those so intense in the quarter delivery push. The good news is that Berlin and Texas should help a lot with that because, es- especially with the Model Y, because it's going to be the first vehicle to be produced at those factories. But I think the biggest step for Tesla is going to be when they produce both Model Y and Model 3 in Berlin for our European markets. Because right now, that's the big challenge for Tesla. The big logistical challenge for Tesla is producing European Model 3 and Model Y in Fremont, though they do some in China now, to be fair, but in Fremont, and then making giant batch of cars for the European market to come at the same time, so that they're delivered around the same time too, and then that pushes production for the US at 3 months, and then push that to the end of the quarter. So if they can have a more regular flow of cars going to North American markets from Fremont throughout the quarter, and then the same thing in Europe from Berlin, then that's going to be a lot smoother. But when that's going to happen, it's I mean, we're talking about Model Y being ramped up and Model 3 being ramped up at Berlin. I don't think Tesla even put a timeline on that. I would assume that's maybe end of next year or something like that. If I were to guess, I think that's fair.
Yeah, if just to back up a little bit, if I was going to try to take delivery of a Tesla, I would certainly try to avoid the end of the quarter.
The problem is that you often can't. Like, you order your car and then
right.
it just
It gets pushed back.
They produce it at that time.
Yeah, I don't know.
All right, we got some news on Tesla Vision. We've talked last week about Elon saying that the FSD 9 gonna come next week, or it wasn't as clear anymore. The for sure in June or for sure in Q2. Like, we knew that might not happen.
I'm pretty sure it's not going to be June.
I mean, yeah, now it's obviously not June, but we said that when he's talking about next week, at least it should be imminent. Like, it should be, even if it's not necessarily next week. If it's next week, it should be soon. And now we did get a good indication that that's going to be extremely soon, because at least the vehicles that are now equipped with Tesla Vision, which is basically the all the new cars, all the new Model 3, Model Ys produced since May. They receive an update to the Autopilot features and active safety features that were restricted without the radar sensors. So with FSD version 9 being based on Tesla Vision 2, vision only without radar, it makes sense that the restriction on the update on new cars would once that lifted, it means that the progress has been made, the verification has been made more, and that would translate to FSD V9. And so, if you don't remember, those restrictions included the smart summon, the auto steer, and autopilot basically being limited to 75 miles per hour, and emergency lane departure avoidance too wasn't available on the car. Now, all those features have been added. Autopilot has been, the limit on the speed has been increased from from 75 miles per hour to 80 miles per hour. So it's still not the 90 miles per hour that you have in the regular cars with radar, but it's still closer to that. I assume that Tesla will not push the Tesla Vision only features to the older car with radar until they have 90 miles per hour, because because then they downgrade you basically. Even though, I'd be willing to take a 90 to 80 miles per hour downgrade if it means that the rest of the features work better. Because I don't often drive more than 80 miles per hour. What's 80 miles per hour in kilometers per hour?
Probably like 130 or something. Is there anywhere where over 80 is legal in the US? I think Texas has some pretty high speeds.
Nevada too, maybe like in big stretch,
Montana.
like 85 and things like that. It's 128. Yeah, I will pass someone 188 if they're being weird or something like that. But normally I'm on cruise control at 119. So yeah, I'm rarely over 80. But yeah, it's still weird to like push an update
Right.
to vehicles that have been around for years with downgrading features. Though Tesla has a kind of history of doing that sometimes, but in this case, it's for the new cars and it's been upgraded. That's 2021.4.18.10. So now you have all the safety features that were there before. You have Smart Summon. That's now vision only. I think for Smart Summon, we're going to start seeing a big difference on that. I would be curious to test the feature. To be fair, I haven't tested much on my car because in Canada it's been limited to. But I would assume that without the radar, it would actually be helpful because sometimes it hacks kind of weird. All right. So the same time, we got some validation from independent testing on the new active safety features on the Tesla Vision only system. So if you remember when Tesla announced the transition to Tesla Vision, both the Consumer Report and IIHS was like were quick to remove their safety rating on the cars. They're like, hey, what's happening? We don't know whether they have these safety features or not. Turns out they had them, and now they tested them, and they found that it's actually just as good as the one with radars, if not better. I mean, it got the same ratings for vehicle to vehicle crash prevention. They both got superior ratings, and very like they do get like some a little bit more in the weeds. In this case, is the system meets the requirement for So in the 12 miles per hour test, it avoided collision. In the old one, in the 25 miles per hour test, it also avoided collision. In the new one, exact same thing. So same thing happened. In the pedestrian test, though, in the vehicle before, so reduce the impact. So at lower crossing, so for the test of crossing a child, so that's a big one that you want to avoid. It didn't avoid the accident before, but it reduced it by 3 miles per hour and 5 miles per hour. In this case, it reduced it by 10 and 12. So it performed better on that front. For a crossing adult, it avoided the collision for both 12 miles per hour and 25 miles per hour test. In the new one, it avoided it for the 12. It didn't avoid it for 25, but it reduced the impact by 13. So actually not as good for crossing adults. But I have to assume that those tests are far from perfect, really.
Yeah.
Then for a parallel adult, so what does that mean? So if you're turning and then there's someone that's walking parallel to your car, I would assume. In the 25 miles per hour test, it avoided it on the whole car, and at 37 miles per hour test, it reduced the impact by 35 miles per hour. Again, a little not exactly as good for the parallel adult test for the new one. Reduced the impact by 24 miles per hour on the 25 mile per hour test, so pretty close to avoiding it. I mean, does that mean that you get hit by a car at 1 mile per hour in that case when they say that?
I don't know, but that doesn't sound too painful.
Yeah, I mean, 1 mile per hour is you can get away from that, I feel like. In the 37 miles per hour test, the impact was reduced by 25 miles per hour. And a warning was issued 3.3 seconds before the impact. I mean, 3.3 seconds, I feel like you have time to react to.
Yeah.
And then that's actually a longer warning time than the previous version without radar, which was 2.7.
Yeah, that might be one of the more important things there, that length of time, because even a second of extra time can get you stopped or whatever.
Yeah, so that's and actually I think that's where we're going to see a lot of improvement from the Tesla Vision side, because and that's a weird part here, because the vehicle, the radar system should be pretty good at, like a big middle thing to detect. Like that's what radars are good at. But crossing childs, crossing adults, and things like smaller targets, smaller objects. I shouldn't say target because you don't want to hit them, but smaller objects. And also not fleshy objects, not metal-based objects. The vision system should be better than the radar, probably. But here's the thing: the big focus, like, so right now, it's pretty much as good. But Musk has been quite clear that it's going to improve from there. That with the vision-based system, without the noise from the radar, they think it's going to improve much faster. So we expect some update soon. And Elon did comment on the new IIHS test, saying that We think we can get max score for all subcategories individual tests too. Retesting in a month or so with improved software. The improved software will be uploaded to all cars with FSD computers. So here you have it. In a month or so, they're going to push a new update, which should improve on that. And that's around the time that they're going to also push the Tesla Vision only system to all cars, even those that have the radar. So basically, in our Model 3s, in your Model Y, we're going to have a radar in the front that's going to be useless.
Useless. Yeah. I wonder, is it going to be 100% useless, or is it just going to be like relegated to, I mean, is it just going to, are they going to even send power to it, or are they just, I don't know.
Yeah, good. That's a good question. It sounds like it's going to be like just a dead weight.
Maybe I can yank it out and sell it on the black market or on the
regular market.
eBay, the regular market, yeah.
On the black market. I don't think that's a very expensive piece of equipment.
The dark web.
Yeah. All right. This news that came out last night, the Model Y standard range is making a comeback through the launch of the Model Y in Hong Kong. So if you remember kind of the debacle with the standard range Model Y that Elon Musk says wouldn't exist because he wasn't happy with the 250 or so mile range on the vehicle. And then it was actually launched earlier this year, just to be pulled a few weeks later. And then Elon said it was an off the menu item, which we all know that Tesla's off the menu item tends to just whittle away after a little while, like the Model 3, the $35,000 Model 3. But now it's making a comeback in Hong Kong as right there in the configurator as the new base Model Y for Hong Kong, starting at the equivalent of $42,000, which was basically what they were selling it in the US, and it's now with all the price increase to the long range Model Y, that's $10,000 less than the base Model Y now in the US. So it's a big difference here. So excited for the Hong Kong market. And I mean, it does make sense with what Elon was saying in terms of the shorter range being a problem. It shouldn't be a problem in Hong Kong. I know you said you work in Hong Kong for a while. It's kind of small, right?
Yeah, there's not much going on there. I mean, there's lots going on, but there's not much place to drive. I was actually on the island, so I mean, there are some parts of like the mainland where there's like some driving area, but really it's kind of all.
But then the mainland you have some driving area, but isn't that left-hand drive and then you have right-hand drive on the island? So there's not much going on between like going from Hong Kong to mainland and vice versa, right?
I was there a long time ago, so I imagine it's a little bit more open now, especially with the kind of the crackdown on the normalcy or the independence of Hong Kong. Yeah. So I don't know. Most people in Hong Kong, unless you're mega rich, don't have a car of their own anyway. So it's hard to say.
Because that's the price of the car here that we're listing at $40,000, which doesn't sound that crazy. But then the license, not the license, the registration, I guess, to the plates, buying your plates is like extremely expensive just to get your plates. And if you can get them, apparently too, that's
what was the ultimate status symbol in Hong Kong?
What?
A lawnmower. If you had a lawnmower, you are the richest person because nobody has a yard there. Yeah. And if you're mowing your own yard, you're quite wealthy.
That makes sense. So you hear a lawnmower around, you're like, what's
wow.
There's some rich people that just woke up and mowing their lawn. So the other thing that's interesting here is that we assume that Model Y is coming from China, from Shanghai. But in mainland China, Tesla is not selling a standard range Model Y too. So it looks like Tesla is just going to produce the standard range Model Y for right-hand drive for Hong Kong. So it gives some hope for other right-hand drive markets that could get their supply from Tesla Shanghai. But at the same time, other right-hand drive markets don't have the same features as land mass as Hong Kong. So like for example, Australia, you're gonna want a longer range car. I mean, right. I guess New Zealand and the UK are not too bad, but still a lot bigger than Hong Kong.
Yeah, I mean Japan's right-hand drive too.
Yeah, Japan, that's fair.
Maybe some folks in India. I don't know. Nah, that's probably not going to happen.
Yeah, I mean the whole Indian launch is supposed to happen soon, actually, and there've been some moves there recently, but it looks quite complicated to launch in India. All right, Megapack just launched a new massive project of 142 megapacks for a 100 megawatts, 400 megawatts hour battery system. That's in Ventura County in California, Southern California, near Oxnard. So this kind of a cool project here. It's run by Erivan Asset Management, and it's replacing a would-be gas peaker plant. And it's actually a cool story because they were gonna build a gas power plant there to strengthen the grid during peak power. They power up that natural gas power plant, and to satisfy that peak demand when the electricity spike for like AC use in the summer and things like that. But they were gonna build that. I mean, Ventura County is a beautiful place. Right on the ocean, and they were gonna take like ocean real estate, like right on the ocean, to build this ugly, like fossil fuel powered power plant. And the community fought against it. They were like, "We don't want that. Batteries are the future. Why you don't just build a giant battery system?" So they did, and they used 142 megapacks, like you can see on this picture here, and it was just powered online just now this week. So. Congrats on everyone involved in this project. This is very cool.
You have to wonder when they're going to start stacking them. Like right
on
now,
top of each other.
Yeah,
they have vent on top of them, though.
I saw that, but you can still vent that way. I mean, I kind of see these as like computer things where right now they're flat, but you could start stacking them. I don't know.
But they're barely, like from the road, they're barely visible right now. Like we have a drone shot here, but if they're not stacked up, like. Because that's the whole thing. Like this thing is 100 megawatts power output, 400 megawatt hour energy capacity.
Yeah,
and I would have to assume it doesn't take more space than a gas peaker plant.
Right.
They're not small.
If they don't do that, they should at least put solar panels on top. Like that would be a nice, easy.
That would also mitigate the heat effect, right? Like
yeah, I don't know. I don't know so much about thermals.
I probably wouldn't touch those things, especially around now. Especially apparently the West Coast is getting a decent heat wave, right. Especially the North, though. Like in BC right now, like people are dying by the hundreds from heat waves. Fires too, but I mean the fires are caused by the heat waves too. So
yeah, it was quite hot here in Massachusetts. It was like over 100 degrees. What's kind of sad is like this is probably the coolest it's going to be for the next, for the rest of our lives. Like it's just going to get hotter and hotter.
Yeah.
It's gross.
Yeah, it's
scary.
It's sad to think about. Yeah, I mean, even scary is also a good word for it. All right. Speaking of fire, a brand new Model S Plaid caught on fire in Pennsylvania earlier this week. It was a strange event at first. Now we're getting a little bit more information about it. So it was in the suburbs of Philadelphia, and at first we only got our information from the firefighters that fought the fire, and then an EMT that was also on scene to help. No one was hurt during the event, but they needed an EMT just because it was super hot, and then the fire was on top of it. So the firefighters were having issues, so they had an EMT on scene to help the firefighters stay hydrated and whatnot. But yeah, the strange thing is that they got a call from a neighbor that saw that the car was on fire and everything, and they rushed on the scene. It took about 3 hours to extinguish the fires, and as you can see from the pictures here, I mean, there's not much left of the Model S here, and the EMT said that they were still looking for the owner, which wasn't in the car, and the car was like rolling down the street. So at first it was it's a self-driving Tesla that caught on fire, which I mean, always a little bit skeptical about.
Right.
But the fact that they couldn't find the owner was quite strange. based on the EMT, what the EMT said on the scene. But now the owner, which we don't know who he is just yet, but he's come out through his lawyers, which were already putting Tesla on blast here. And to a degree, there's something to be said, because this is a brand new car. Like literally, it has to be like less than 2 weeks old. Well, it has to be like delivered less than 2 weeks old. It might have been produced a few months back, really, because we know Tesla's been producing some of them for a while back. So now it already brings some attention to fire risks on the new Model S, because especially in the context that Elon did mention that one of the reasons for the delays is that Tesla was making sure that the battery pack on the new Model S was safe. That's his word. So in that context, people are like, did you make sure enough that it was safe? Because within a few weeks, there's already one that caught on fire. Now, that's one of like 2,000 cars that were delivered this quarter. The lawyers was quick about that. It was like, hey, this is one of 250 that already caught on fire. It's actually one of 2,000, to be fair, but nonetheless, he does have a point to a degree. Tesla hasn't commented on the issue, of course. I don't know if Elon doesn't comment on it. We don't know anything, but I would assume that there's going to be a few investigation on that stuff, and Tesla's going to have to come out and say something about it at some point. We just don't know for now.
Still pretty strange. I'm sure watching a Model S rolling down the street on fire would have been a weird scene.
Yeah. And now, the lawyer's thing too was that he said that the owner was trapped inside the car briefly. I mean, we don't have many details, but I would assume that when the car started catching on fire, the power went down, and then the electronics didn't work. So the electronic release didn't work, but then you have the manual release right next to it, and that probably worked, and he was able to get out of the car without injury. I mean, I don't blame him for saying that he was trapped in the car. You're probably panicking at that point, and you want to get out. But it's a good reminder, everyone, that you have an electronic release, which should always encourage people to use the electronic release, not because of the frameless windows, but you also have the manual release that's right next to it, and it's easily available. So any kind of power, because you hear more than any other car I've heard that, like, we were trapped in the car in a Tesla in the sun and things like that. I'm like, I've never got it. Like, there's nothing magic about it. And there's a manual release like any other car, unless the manual release breaks for some reason. But I've never heard that.
Then you got 4 more to try, or 3
That's
more.
True. Yeah. Well, actually, in the trunk too, you can jump in the trunk, and
right.
there's a manual release in the trunk too. All right. Oh, this one is a great one. Like, I gotta laugh out of that one this week. Like, someone sent me that lawsuit, and I read it, and I chuckle a little bit. A Tesla owner, who happens to be a lawyer, by the way, surprise, surprise, is suing Tesla over the idle fees, the Supercharger idle fees. So he's a 2014 Model S owner. So he's very familiar with Tesla. He's owned the car since 2014. And back then, Tesla was selling the Model S under the free supercharging for life model. And but then they introduced the idle fees, which is still free supercharging. It's just that if you leave the car after it's done charging and you leave there just park without charging, Tesla's going to charge you a fee within 5 minutes of not moving the car in order for you to free up the charging stall so someone else can use it, which is just a way to incentivize you to just be a decent human being and move your car after charging it. But the guy is trying to make a very lawyer argument that this actually defeats the purpose of claiming that you have free supercharging if you have a supercharger idle fees. If you read the lawsuit, the guy is just masterfully never like mentioned idle fee, just mentioned like supercharger fee, like to not have a distinction between the two. And he's trying to turn this thing into a class action lawsuit and have other early Tesla owner that are free supercharger on free supercharging get on board. Which good luck with that, because I think everybody else can see through that nonsense. And Mr. Kevin Schenkman Seems like a very nice guy, and he. I mean, even in the lawsuit, there's some crazy things in there. Like he says that in practice, again referring to the idle fees, in practice, this meant that customer would no longer be able to leave their vehicle unattended while it was charging and go do something else without paying Tesla for supercharging, a change from how Tesla previously marketed its vehicles, which is complete nonsense for anyone that's used a supercharger. You know that first of all, when you plug the car in the first place, it tells you how much times it's going to take for you to charge at your desired charge level. Of course, that can change. For example, if you're parked, if you're using a V2 supercharger, the V3 that it doesn't apply, but for V2, if you're parked next to someone else in a AB stall, then you share power with someone, and if the someone leaves, then for the time that he's leaving, you do get more power potentially depending on your state of charge. So that could affect it, but um other than that, like when it's gonna end, so you can leave and come back when it's gonna end. And on top of it, you have your mobile app that sends you a nice little notification on your phone that's telling you, hey, your car is done, you should move it. So that's you get that, you come back. And I've been in a situation where I parked the car at a supercharger, went to grab something to eat at a restaurant. I wasn't done eating or something like that, but the charging got done faster, and I just moved the car, went out, moved the car, went back in my seat within like 5 minutes, and then you continue your dinner or whatever. It's perfectly doable. But for some reason, this guy doesn't make the difference. Tesla's claim was free supercharging for life. I still have a car on free supercharging for life. My Model S is on that program, and it's still free. What this guy wants is free parking for life, and Tesla never promised that, because when the car is sitting there not charging, it's a parking spot. It's not
Right.
You're using it as parking spot, not charging. So this is kind of the new. I mean, electric vehicles are still kind of new technology for some people, and there's what we call the charging etiquette, like how to hack at a charging station. And this guy obviously hasn't gotten on board just yet, and now you want some money for it. Oh yeah. Oh, the thing I didn't mention though. So Tesla first charged him an idle fee in 2019, and the guy didn't pay it.
Uh-oh.
And he complained to Tesla. He's like, I'm not gonna pay it. And Tesla was like, all right, they just forgave it, and then he continued using the supercharger network. Then in 2020, same thing happened, and then Tesla was like, no, you're gonna have to pay it now. Like, you cannot just leave your car there and not pay your idle fee. And the guy was like, nope, you promised me free supercharging, I'm not gonna pay it. And Tesla was like, all right, well, you're not gonna use a supercharger anymore if you're just gonna leave your car and accumulate idle fees and not pay them. And that's when triggered the lawsuit. Which, I mean, I think it's fair for Tesla. Like, if the guy doesn't use the supercharger network as intended, if you use them as a parking spot, then you lose your privilege of using it.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know about the legalities on all of it, but just in common sense, obviously Tesla is on the right side. Now, based on the language and how they promise free supercharging, I don't know if the guy has actually a case or anything like that, but I would encourage any Tesla owners that could jump on the class action lawsuit not to do it, and leave that guy alone and have his lawyer friends make the money off of it, and that's it. All right, Tesla China. That was the big story earlier in the week. A massive recall in Tesla China. Everyone was posting that from the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal. Tesla is recalling all Model 3 and Model Y vehicles produced in China over the last 2 years. It's insane, blah, 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 blah. Start looking into the story a little bit. All right, what's that recall? It's a software over the air update recall. All right, so it's not too bad. Tesla is not actually recalling the vehicle. It's just that through the legal process, they have to call it a recall, but they're actually just pushing a software update that is demanded by the authorities. Okay, not too bad, not too bad. It's still fair for the Wall Street Journal and everything to call it a recall and everything. But where things got a little bit crazier is that when you look at the actual software update, and because I saw some people calling it, did I post it? Yeah, some people was calling it a safety issue. Some people were calling like a Autopilot software problem, and all those things. Like, it was very blown up in the media, when actually the actual software update is adding a chime to when you activate cruise control. So if you know right now you have a Model 3 and you have Autopilot, or not Autopilot, one pull on the right hand stalk gives you the cruise control. 2 pulls gives you the autopilot. 1 pull, you just see the cruise control icon appearing on your screen, and that's it. 2 pulls, you see the autopilot, the auto steer icon appearing on the screen, and you get a little chime, like a ding ding happening. And apparently, some people were activating the cruise control without knowing it. They didn't look at the icon or something because there weren't no chimes. So what all Tesla did with this update is adding a chime to the cruise control activation. That's it. That's the whole update. That's the huge recall that all the media were blowing out the proportion. And the problem really was the Wall Street Journal was the first to report on this, and they called it a safety issue, and then they only describe it as possible defects, which found that their cruise control system could be accidentally activated and potentially result in an unexpected speed increase, the regulator said. So this kind of a weird way to describe people mistakenly activating the cruise control. So that's it. Because of course, if you do activate cruise control, you're gonna get an acceleration out of it if the cruise control is set at a higher speed than the one you're driving right now. Though it's traffic aware, so depending on if you have a car in front of you. So completely blown out of proportion. But this is actually a good segue into our next story, because Tesla was able to fix that through an over-the-air software update. Now Porsche announced that they are recalling also all Taycan produced over the last 2 years, and over bigger issue actually over a loss of power. But it's also something that can be fixed through a software update. It's just that apparently said they are not able to do it over the air. Am I correct in saying that?
Say that again.
It's
over the air.
It is over the air?
No, they could have done it over the air. They did not do it over the air.
Okay. Do you know why?
So the official, I shouldn't say on background, but you know, like our Porsche source said that it's something that they could have done over the air, but they wanted to make sure that it was done properly, so that they wanted to make sure it was done in person. So to me, that means that they don't have enough confidence in their over-the-air update, that, or maybe it couldn't have been done and they didn't want to tell me or whatever. But to me, it says that they don't have enough confidence to do it over the air. They wanted to do it in person. So it's
now. Do you think that it's purely like a technical issue, or do you think it has something to do with the dealers? Because now you have to bring your car to the dealership, and this has been a problem in the U.S. where that third-party dealership they own service on those vehicles, and that recall is a part of their business. The recalls,
right? That's a good question. I don't know. It's also interesting that they didn't issue an official press release in the U.S. I had to go to the German website to get kind of the verbiage there at the end.
I did get one in the U.S. though. I did get the press release in the U.S.
You got the press release, okay?
Yeah.
So I mean, there was an English press release, but it was for the U.S. thing. Anyway, that makes a lot of sense. Not something I thought about for the first pass, but it's still, to me, like, why as a Porsche owner do you have to drive to the dealership, sit in the lobby while they basically do something that should come over the air, especially with Porsche talking about its over the air updates as like, on par with Tesla and a part of the car. If it can't do this, then what is there? And I should note, like I gotta jump to the sites here, but on the NHTSA site, I linked to it in this post. There's 27 official complaints, and some of them are significant. One says complete battery failure luckily occurred in a safe location while parked, but April 27th, I tried to launch control. A few seconds into it, I got all-wheel drive error, engine performance limited, the car slowed. One of them was like, I was in the middle of the road and almost got rear-ended by a truck.
Yeah, that's a problem with the power loss. Yeah,
Right.
that's
A
the
truck
scary
behind
part.
us had to come to a quick sudden stop to avoid hitting us in the rear of the car. The car was taken to Porsche South Bay for understanding the cause of the problem. The manufacturer was alerted. Porsche customer care filed a case. Porsche service was supposed to report their findings to customer care. Blah, blah, blah. The car was running fine when the issue happened. Porsche continually having issues with this car, all related to the PCM. So, I mean, you go through these and like, yes, there's a power outage. You know, you can restart the car and it works okay. But like, this is something I feel like they should have just pushed an update, like almost involuntarily, to the cars if it can be fixed, because otherwise, you know, somebody's going to be in a tunnel or on a bridge or behind a truck like this other guy, and it's going to be a death. And it's something that can, if it is something that can be pushed over the air, then it certainly should be. So,
but we should know that just was it a few months ago, Porsche did push updates to the 2020 Taycans to had features that were on the 2021 Taycans, and those were like smaller, like not related to like battery management stuff, electric motor stuff. They were all more like convenience features, and there was some suspension features and things like that, but still wasn't as big of an update. It was more about like just adding value. And that was also not done over the air. That was also done by the dealership. You had to go to the dealership if you wanted those features.
Yeah, I linked that your post in April, and then at the same time they had they did the plug-in charge update, which allowed Porsche to you just plug it in, and you don't have to put in any of your information into Electrify America in the U.S. And that was done over the air. So they can do some over the air updates, but for some reason they don't trust it for all cases, I guess.
Yeah, and doing well right now, the Taycan 2 in the US, right? It's
it just passed 911. Selling more than the 718.
And almost twice as much as last year during the same period.
Right. The only thing is the Cayenne and the Macan, and we know the Macan's going to have a electric one soon. So, you know, Porsche might be a 50% EV company in a year or two.
Yeah. The Macan and the Cayenne are going to be the big deal to electrify.
Yep.
And they keep saying, "Oh, we don't want an all electric with the 911 and everything." But with the numbers they're seeing on the Taycan, I'm pretty sure they're going to start considering making the 911 electric faster. And I still don't understand why we don't have a small sports car that's all electric. I mean, we had the Roadster, of course, and then Tesla's going to bring back the Roadster, the new version, but a smaller, like just a small sports car, all electric, like because the Roadster is still like a 4-door vehicle. It's going to be like it's going to be 2-door but 4-seat vehicle. Yeah. So
the electric Miata. It's got
electric Miata, or I mean, you make it Miata electric, you ultimately make it a higher performance version. But like, even because of course I'm not comparing a 911 to a Miata, but you know what I mean, like just a smaller sports car 2-seater that's all electric. I would think that Porsche would jump on that, but anyway, they are just too attached to the image, I think.
With those numbers, we should also note the only car that Porsche was down year over year was the Panamera, which is probably the closest.
Definitely the closest competitor
to the Taycan. Yeah. So it's definitely cannibalizing, Porsche ICE. I think
automakers should take note. That's what you need to do. You need to be willing to cannibalize your own cell with your all-electric vehicles, because otherwise someone else would steal those.
Exactly.
All right, we have one more post to discuss, and then we're going to jump into the comments. But I know that since we got on a lot earlier today, we have a lot less people watching live right now, so a lot fewer comments. But if you have any questions, put them in right now. We're going to be able to discuss them in just a few minutes after we discuss the end. It's the end for the BMW i3 in the US. Sorry. Well, now it says next month, but it's actually not out this month because that was posted in June. But BMW sent communication to their dealership in the US saying that July is going to be the last month that they're going to have allocation for the BMW i3 in the US. So it's the end. It's the end of the quirky little weird model that was BMW's first all electric vehicle, and it had a good run, had a decent run, really. Um, Kind of didn't live up to what we thought it would be. Like the BMW i3 would come with the BMW i4 after that. And we do get the BMW i4 now when the i3 goes away 8 years later, but still. And that's in the US. The program lives for a little while longer elsewhere. Previously, BMW, I think it was last year, BMW committed to producing the i3 until 2024 at their German plant. I don't know if that's still, they're going to still stick to that 2024, because especially with the iX3, the i4, the iNext is now the iX. Those cars are obviously superior to the i3, which use the older generation powertrain. So I don't know if they're going to stick to the 2024, but for the US, it's over now.
The Mini is still using that platform as well. So
yeah, and it's closer in form factor to the i3 than the other vehicles I mentioned.
Yeah, I mean the i3, like it was certainly, at its, when it was released, it was certainly an interesting car. It had the Rex option, so it could be a plug-in hybrid. Although they strangely only put like a 1 or 2 gallon tank of gas, so you drive like 3 exits and then fill up, and then drive 3 more exits and fill up. There was some regulatory reason for that. Like I drove one a few times. Those suicide doors in the back were kind of annoying for if you have kids. So I think a lot of people didn't really use that as 4-seaters. And the range was like, kind of depressing, like just about 100 miles. Even at the end there, I think they had 130 or something. So that's just not going to sell in today's market, where you kind of need 200 miles to
compete.
Yeah. So I don't know. It was a great car at the time. It should have been probably surpassed. It should have been cannibalized by BMW probably 2 times since then. But BMW just kind of had a missing decade of EVs. They just didn't do anything.
They sat on the early leadership that they created with the i3, really, because they were kind of early. 2013, that car came out. That was kind of early for their like resurgence of electric vehicles. And to be fair, they did deliver already around 200,000 units globally. So of course, if you compare that to like a Model 3 until that, Tesla does that in the quarter now, 200,000. Well, with Model Y if they put it together, but so it's not impressive, but it was still a significant electric vehicle. In the US, it never really catch on. It peaked in sale in 2015 with about 11,000 units, and it has been decreasing ever since. I think now to like 1,000 or 2,000 a year max. So it's really not a significant vehicle program for the company in the US. So that's why they're killing it. Still doing okay in some market, especially Germany. So that's probably where it's gonna stay alive the longest. But I would be surprised if it's still around even in Germany by the end of next year.
Wasn't VW CEO Herbert Diess kind of like part of that program when it launched?
I mean, it's around the time that he left, though. When did he leave BMW?
I feel like that might have been BMW's big demise in terms of EV leadership.
Oh, yeah, that could be a good reason why actually that was the last EV for a long time. If DS was pushing for electrification there. I'm just pulling up his LinkedIn here just real quick. So he left in 2014, BMW.
Yeah. So laid the groundwork for the i3, Volkswagen.
Launched it, then left. Yeah.
And then the other leaders. My understanding of BMW is, in 2014, after the i3 launched, pretty much everybody who knew anything about EVs exited the company, went different places like Electrify America.
Byton. A lot of them went to Byton,
right? Even like the PR people scattered. So BMW basically had to start over with the i3s and stuff, and they kept the i3 going obviously until now. But really there was no change. It kind of reminds me of the Chevy Bolt a little bit, where Chevy created this fantastic car, 2016, probably one of the best electric vehicles of all time, and hasn't done much with it since. A little bit of a shame.
Definitely is. All right. Do we have? I don't think we have many questions. We can look real quick, but we were able to do an hour without it.
All right. Yeah. Let me find a couple.
Yeah.
Have you seen any official thanks or congratulations from Tesla or Elon Musk to Pikes Peak champ Randy Popst? Seems like such a waste of good PR not to parade it around, and sort of disrespectful to Randy and team.
Oh, I wouldn't go as far as saying that it's disrespectful, to be honest. I mean, it's not it's not a pure Model S Plaid. I mean, it's mostly a Model S Plaid, but Unplugged Performance did add quite a few modification to it, including and there's things that Tesla I'm sure wouldn't necessarily like the whole not using the steering wheel thing. So I can understand why Tesla wouldn't be exactly promoting that stuff. But at the same time, yes, they definitely did a great time at Pikes Peak. They did win the exhibition category, which I mean they did a great time overall. So to be fair, if I remember correctly, because of the timing and everything, they couldn't enter anything more than the exhibition one. So maybe next year we could expect them to enter a more competitive category, which would probably gather more press. But I'm not surprised that Elon or Tesla themselves wouldn't jump on commenting on that, really. Not that it's not a great achievement for Randy and the entire Unplugged Performance team like that. That's those guys are always doing great stuff. Like Tesla already has pretty insane performance vehicle, and those guys always top it off every time. So it's impressive.
All right, so we have a reader that with a Cyrillic name I can't pronounce. I love Tesla. When this car come to Moscow?
Well, Elon has been saying soon, but they've been saying soon for a long time. So we don't really know. However, we do know that the best indication for Tesla launching a new market is Tesla having Supercharger in the market, which is definitely the first thing they do, and then a service center. They won't do anything until they have both of those. Service center is the one that's more in the air right now, but the Superchargers, there's some planned ones, and if you look at the map, I think they are planned for early next year, they say. But even that, those timelines are never great either. So I wouldn't be surprised if it actually launched next year. However, to be fair, with the Russian Tesla fans, they do take care of themselves pretty well. Like we do know that there's this gray market where Tesla is not officially in a specific market. You have to import the vehicle. Sorry, you have to import the vehicle yourself, and that comes with its own complication in the importation process. But also, once you do get delivery, the Tesla doesn't have necessarily like a network partnership in terms of the connection for the GPS, the cellular connection for like Autopilot and all that stuff, which is not ideal. But the local owners that did go through the process of importing their own cars created their own Tesla Club in Moscow, and they put together a whole process to facilitate the importation and also to service the vehicle there. They have a whole like full-fledged service center that they built themselves. So good on them for that. And so if you are in Moscow, you can actually check them out and see if you could get the car not officially through Tesla, but through them. I'm sure it's going to be a little bit more expensive probably, but it's certainly doable.
All right. I think that's about it. The only other thing is, yes, we scheduled a earlier show today because of my schedule, but we'll be back at the normal scheduled time, most likely next week at 4:00 Eastern time.
Yeah. So that's probably why we don't have that much questions right now, because fewer people are watching us live. But we appreciate the ones that did come out live, because that means you're probably subscribed and you saw the notifications. So if you're not subscribed and you're watching after the fact right now, please do, and you get a notification. And when we go live on YouTube and Facebook. And then, of course, the podcast goes audio only on all your podcast platform out there. And we appreciate you guys listening and watching. And we're going to see you same place, same time. Not same